I spent actually most of the day cleaning fasteners, getting all the stuff off them, rust and undercoat and whatever. Jeez.
Doesn't look like I'll be painting anytime soon, huh?
Jumping right in here with the time lapse. Working at the lathe. My first order of business here is to take some 1/2-inch rod and drill a 21/64 hole right down through the center and begin making parts for the driving light adjusters. Always so much setup work to do in this kind of thing. Using the dial indicator to set the run out on the 4-jaw chuck. Because I'm using the cutoff tool, every time I make a part, I have to pull the rod out and reset the run out. It's important to keep the cutoff tool working as close to the jaws as I can. Now I reset the dial indicator to show the travel on the carriage so that I can replicate the depth of the cut during what I would call a mass production type of maneuver. What I've been making here are these little ferrules. And its job is to be held inside here and allow these pegs to misalign. They have to have a certain amount of misalignment, otherwise the light won't adjust. It needs to be able to rock like this. But also didn't want it to jiggle. Now, I could have just ran a screw with a spring in between, but then I'd have the play of the threads and the length of the screw, and it wouldn't hold the light very steady. So as I'm driving down the road, it would be bouncing. So what I decided to do, and this is my 4th generation design here, and I hope it works. This, we put a little O-ring, I put an O-ring in like so, after it's welded, of course, so it sits inside the groove that's made in here. There's just a touch of compression on it, just a bit, just enough that it holds this pin securely, yet still allows it to still misalign when it's adjusted. So the job here is, we got a spring on there, like so, and then the adjuster screw will screw down against the spring. This will be the adjusting screw that I can reach from the front. And if it's made out of stainless screws, nylon threads, and they will continue to work for years. Probably longer than the lights last. Anyway, that's the design of the thing. Making the brackets is the next step. There were 2 things I was worried about. One was, let me grab the light. I wanted this adjuster to be around here, around the center of this light, because that's the center of gravity. The idea is, if I mount it here in behind, then all the mass is levered out from the bracket and it'll want to bounce. But if I put it at the center of gravity, it'll be held tight by the O-rings and it can't lever the brackets. It's held inside the tubes with 0 tolerance, yet the O-rings provide a pivot for it to adjust. And that is the whole theory behind the thing. I really hope this works. It's been a lot of work to just get it this far. Like I said, this is my 4th iteration of design. It's just smaller because I had already committed to the size of the... I already have the lights, correct? I already have the tubes made, and the light, it has to fit in there and not bind anything and still allow full adjustment of this light. So it became a challenge to make it small enough because I'd already committed to all of this work. It will actually function as an air duct as well. So it will be letting air in around the light, which has its heat sink built in. So air will be coming around, keeping the housing cool, and it will be tunneling more air, or I should say funneling more air towards the radiator. It's taken a lot longer than I anticipated, but we have about a foot of snow on the ground and more snow in the forecast. Maybe it's a forecrash. We got more snow in the forecast for a couple of days from now. Let's get at it. Hi, welcome to Dawn's Manufactory. Well, as you can see, I am setting up the light housings in the cross vise here. In my attempts to make brackets for this, I realized that the bosses for the bolts are a little too long. They stick out too far, so I can't make it work inside my tube. So made the decision I'm just going to go ahead and mill down the mounting bosses for the brackets. And that is what I am doing. So we'll slide off into time lapse, and here we go. Okay, working the cross vise here. Got an end mill set up, and I'm machining the bottom mounting boss down. You'll notice I'm hanging on to it every time. This light is not square in any way. I mean, it's not square, it's round, but it's also shaped like an egg. So there's no way to like clamp it and make it tight. So I was having trouble doing that, getting it clamped tight, and I ended up having to do this here where I have to take one of the mounting bosses and machine it off by hand, or I couldn't even get the dang thing to fit. You can see I'm having to stop and clean the bit a bunch and lubricate it. Okay, now that it stays in there, I'm back to machining the bosses again. I can get one side flat and then flip it over and then mill that hand machined one flat. I'm doing the side that I hand machined, getting that flat. And then I realized, oh gosh, I have to machine a couple of the cooling fins as well in order to get that adjuster in tight enough that it's going to fit inside the tube. I had to re-drill the holes because I'd machined too much of the depth out of them, and now I have to tap them. And so now, finally, I can get to making the brackets. No plans for these, of course, so I'm just sort of winging it, figuring it out as I go. I got my little Mickey Mouse ears on my lights. Spent some time fabricating those mounts. So this one does up and down, but these two will pivot against these two here, so they won't quite be left and right. They'll kind of go down as they go left and right, but hey, whatever. Okay, so what I want to show you here is just how I'm fastening my little ferrules onto the bracket. So basically I try to arrange things so that gravity is working in my favor. Well, come on, get all of it done. I need to hang on to it so it'll stay there. There we go. So I want gravity to hold it. So in this situation, I want it held down this way and then against the bracket that way too. So it needs to sit right there like that. I don't like to try to heat it and dip my silver solder in there, which is what I'm using. Got it at the local welding store. So what I do instead is I cut a little ring of the solder and it just fits over the ferrule. So now I take my flux for my silver solder and I just flux this whole thing here. Just like that. A little extra down there in the back. It's all going to run off when I heat it anyway. And then this sits right in there, like so. And this then sits on it just like that. See, I don't have to go all the way around because it will wick itself just right into place. That's it. I'm just using my propane torch and away we go. So at this point, I don't have to worry about anything falling, going anywhere. All I have to do is heat it up until it flows. If you just sit there and watch it, so the flux has now cleaned all the surface off, even though I already had it cleaned, but you know what I mean. So there it goes. It will now wick itself around the whole thing. Just like that. And it's done. It even wicks all the way up the side here, see? And soldered the ferrule to the brace. So now this brace can't like move and turn. I'll be machining some of that down anyway because it's a little more than it needs to be, but I left it there so that it would hold the ferrule in place. Clean it up as soon as it cools off a little bit here. Got to get all the flux off it. Now if I were doing pipe connections or something like it, I dipped it in battery acid, sulfuric acid. It cleans all of the flux off and turns everything just bright. And it just looks fabulous. Whew. Still just a little toasty. So at this point, it's cold enough, I can spritz it with water. The water will help dissolve the flux. Just like that. Now I'll just take it over here to the bench grinder. So there it is. Now all I have to do is clamp this thing in my little vise over there and drill the hole that goes all the way through. And then I have a tool I made for cleaning the flux out of the O-ring groove, and it'll be ready. Well, so here's how the adjuster works right there. See, it's got a little wiggle room so I can adjust. It can be out of position from perfectly linear. So all it needs is a little U-shaped thing right here so that that plastic piece has a place to go when you tighten the screw. And that's it. Well, this is as far as I've gotten. I've still got another light to make the brackets and the adjusters for. I think these adjusters work pretty good. I still have to make the bracket that goes inside the tube. They do fit, however. Just as a demonstration, we can just get my hand inside there. So there it is. Ta-da! You can see the adjusting screws. This was a lot more work than I anticipated to get this all engineered. There were times when I thought, oh, heck with it, just paint the valance and put the car back together. Thanks for watching Don's Manufactory. Maybe the next time I'll be collimating the lights and making it all work together. That would be great. I sure made a mess. Catch you later.